Okay, so with this lesson, we're talking about basically gross capital gain is what it's called. It's basically profit, though again, the reason why it's gross is because we're going to learn in the next lesson is there's lots of fees associated with buying and selling stock. So gross is not including those fees being taken out yet. It's literally just your purchase price. And again, we already copied this down, but I'm just going to write it one more time. Gross capital gain in general is your, selling price. That goes first. Selling price, so all the money you have coming in minus your purchase price. It's a gain if this comes out to be positive. It's a loss if this comes out to be negative. And that is going to matter for your answer because it is possible to take a loss on stock. If you decide to sell for whatever reason, again, you don't have to sell unless if you don't want to, but if there's an emergency or something happened and you have to sell your stock at a lower price than what you bought it for, you can take a loss. So we need to include those negatives if we do have a loss, and that will affect if you get the right answer or not in the end and on Canvas. Let's go ahead and read example 1. So several years ago, Marlene purchased stock for $7,241. Last week, she sold the stock for $9,219. What was her gross capital gain? So once again, this is selling minus purchase. And again, you cannot flip that. It's not purchase minus selling. It's how much money you had coming in minus the money you had to spend. So what's going to go where? What's my selling price and what's my purchase price based on what it says? Well, my selling price is this. She sold the stock. Yes, it is the second number, but that's the selling price. Read the question. And this is the purchase price, $7,241. So this is literally all I have to do. This is all the money she has coming in minus the money she had to spend up front. What do we get here? 9,219 minus 7,241. Okay, so her gross capital gain was $1,978. So this is like talking about the total, right? If that was the price of all of the stock that she owned, now it's worth this much. That is, again, gross capital gain because it's positive, as well as that, again, there's going to be some fees involved with buying and selling stock. We're going to talk about that in the next lesson. Okay, so similar question here, but it's a little bit different. 5 years ago, Jessica bought 300 shares of a cosmetics company's stock for $34.87 per share. So here we were given the total cost for all of the stock. Here we are told how many shares and then the cost per share. Yesterday, she sold all the shares for $41 per share. What was her capital gain? So once again, this is selling price minus the purchase price. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. You can find the profit off of one share and then find the profit for all of the shares. Or you can find the total selling price and the total purchase price for all of these shares and then subtract them that way. I'm going to do the individual profit off of one share because it's one less step as an example here. But again, you could do it slightly differently. So selling price is going to be what per share? 41, that's our selling price, minus the purchase price is $34.87 per share. Now, again, this is going to be the per share capital gain, but she has more than one share. So 41 minus 34.87 is $6.13 per share. But again, there's 300 shares. So what should we do here to find the total capital gain for all of these shares? Multiply by 300. So this is 1,839 total. Again, you could have multiplied these each individually by 300 and then subtracted. But this is technically one less step because we only have to multiply by 300 once instead of multiplying both of these by 300. So just be careful and keep an eye out for if they tell you the total prices, you just subtract. If they tell you how many shares and then the individual prices, make sure you find the total capital gain in the end. So try this one more time. Again, notice that we have a number of shares and an individual price per shares. We need the total capital gain for all of these. So capital gain is your selling minus the purchase. Notice that they always list the selling price second. That's because that happens second. You buy first, and then you sell 68.24. So you almost always list it second. Okay, so here is the per share capital gain, which is 17.65, but there are 125 shares. You should have gotten 2,206.25. Pretty decent money. Again, you're like, I could work a bit and I'd make that, maybe in a month or two. But you're not having to work for it at all, right? The money just sits there and it grows, and then you click sell and hey, you've made some money. That's kind of the nice thing about the stock market. Yes, we will go ahead and do this one. Okay, so this one is talking about capital gain as a percent. So this is going to be like a percent increase. So Randy paid $3,450 for shares of a corporation that manufactured cell phones. He sold it for $6,100. Expresses capital gain as a percent of the original purchase price. So capital gain as a percent is different on the formula sheet. So here was gross capital gain. Just subtract them. Capital gain as a percent is right here. So we're going to copy that. Selling price minus the purchase over the purchase. So capital gain is on top, right? Selling price minus the purchase price. This is capital gain, just in general. As a percent means we're going to divide, right? If you recall, we had questions that said, what percent? And that was the question they were asking. We would divide every single time, no matter the context of the question. If it says what percent, we are dividing. Now, what we're dividing by is, again, actually what it tells us right here. The original purchase price. So it is the selling price minus the purchase price, that's capital gain, out of the original purchase price. So this is going to tell, our answer here is going to say how much profit you made as a percent of what you had to spend to begin with. So we just need to pop the numbers in where they go. So read the question, pop in the selling price, purchase price, and see if you get it right. Okay, so the selling price is $6,100. Careful that you put things in the right spot. Minus, therefore, the $3,450 goes here. And on the bottom, that second number is always going to be the same. So let's see what we got here, plugging this in. Okay, so we get this is a lot. 0.768, let's say. Rather than the nearest tenth of a percent, yeah. So again, 0.768, if we don't know what this is immediately as a percent, multiply it by 100 because we're going in reverse, right? Normally, we take a percent and divide it by 100. Here, we have the decimal. We're going back to a percent. So if you try that in the calculator, you will get 76.8%. That's pretty decent gain. Again, keep in mind that when we learned about bank accounts are like 0.5%. That's not even 1%. It's 0.5%. So the stock market, yeah, you can get some pretty decent gains out of it. So just again, we're going to try it one more time. Notice again that the question being asked here says as a percent, which is how we know to use this formula, and not just selling minus purchase. Go ahead and try it on this one. They tell you the per share price here, but because we are dealing with percents, it does not matter what the total is. We can base it off of the per share price. So again, We don't know how many shares she bought, but it doesn't matter. Use the individual prices and the percent will still work out. Okay, so we have selling minus purchase over purchase. There's a little hint here that tells us something about our answer. It says express her loss as a percent of the purchase price. So our answer is going to be a negative percent. She lost this much percent. So if your answer is not negative, you've probably flip-flopped things that you shouldn't have. Giving us a little hint here again, our answer will be negative. So selling, sold, 35, minus purchase is 55, over purchase is 55. So this is why it comes out to be negative, because we don't get to flip-flop these. Whatever the selling price is, it goes there, even if it's less than the purchase price. And again, we know it's going to be less than the purchase price because this is a loss. So let's see, this is 20, we're negative 20. Okay, you should have gotten negative 0.364. Again, if you're rounding differently, you know it's not a big deal. Times that by 100, this is negative 36.4%. So she lost 36% of what she invested. She bought it for 55 and sold it for 35. Again, you might even ask yourself why she would do that. Why doesn't she just wait? Maybe she didn't have a choice. Maybe she had an emergency and she needed money right now. Even if it wasn't all of the money that she put in, it would be some of it back. She would get $35 per share back. So sometimes that can happen where people are put in a position where they have to sell even if it's at a loss. So when you're doing the assignment, read very carefully. If it just says capital gain, it's just selling minus purchase. If it says capital gain as a percent, make sure you divide by the purchase price.